This episode might come across as a bit weird to you, mostly because it contains truth. Inconvenient truth for some.
Podcasting Insights.
There's a moment almost every podcaster has. It usually happens a few episodes in. You look at your calendar, you feel your energy, you look at the microphone, and you think, oh, I might have slightly overcommitted here. Because somewhere early on, you decided this podcast was going to be weekly. Not because weekly made sense, but because weekly seemed serious. Like the podcast equivalent of buying a planner in January. Most indie podcasters lock in their publishing schedule far too early in the process. Weekly feels like the default. It feels professional. It feels like what real podcasters do. But it's usually a decision made before you know what the show actually wants to be, how much energy it's going to take out of you, or whether you even enjoy recording yet more content. So what starts as excitement slowly turns into obligation. And obligation is where podcasts quietly lose their spark. Let's talk about the guilt loop, and this is going to feel quite familiar. Here's the pattern I see all the time. And yes, I've done this myself. You miss a week. You feel guilty. You record something quickly to make up for it. The episode is fine. You feel a bit worse though. So you promise yourself, I'm going to be more consistent from now on, which usually just ends up with you feeling more tired. There's a very specific type of episode you record when you're doing it out of guilt, and listeners can hear it instantly. Your words carry energy. It's the podcast version of when someone asks you, "You okay?" and you reply with, "Yeah, all good," when absolutely nothing is all good. Here's a recent, very real example that I can share with you. This actually happened to me a couple of months ago. During the November-December period, I oversubscribed myself to my own recording schedule. I didn't factor in getting sick. I didn't factor in needing to rest my voice. I definitely didn't factor in being a human being who needs Christmas. I ended up about 4 episodes behind if you look at it through the lens of a strict weekly schedule. And yeah, there was a little flicker of guilt. That voice inside that says, people are going to notice. People are going to wonder where you've gone. But then I realized something slightly awkward. I'd literally just recorded episodes telling people not to do exactly what I was doing. So I took my own advice. I rested. I didn't record with a knackered voice and a bad mood. And the world didn't end. No angry emails from listeners going, "Where the f*** are your episodes?" No dramatic drop-off. No one sitting around thinking, "I can't believe he's abandoned us." When the episode eventually did publish, the response was basically, "Oh, there he is again," which is exactly how I react when podcasts that I enjoy take their breaks. What I was really suffering from there was the spotlight effect. I've talked about this before in this podcast. It's that feeling that everyone is paying far more attention to what you're doing than they actually are. We think listeners are tracking our schedules. They're not. They're busy. They got their own lives. They press play when something shows up in their library and it sounds interesting. They don't sit around moping because you missed a week. They just get on with things. Look, here's the truth that a lot of podcast gurus won't want you to hear. Frequency doesn't build trust. Intent does. Nobody's really ever thought, "I wasn't sure about this podcast, but then I noticed they religiously publish every Tuesday, and suddenly I felt emotionally invested." That doesn't happen. What builds trust is knowing why your episode exists and how it helps them. Feeling like the host actually wanted to be there for you. And sensing that your time wasn't just treated casually. Here's the truth. I would much rather listen to a podcaster who goes quiet occasionally than one who never stops talking. At least the silence is honest. Consistency doesn't mean weekly, never missing, pushing through regardless. Consistency is a recognizable voice showing up, a familiar pace, a sense of you care. You can be consistent without being frequent, and you can be frequent and not be consistent. And only one of those makes people stick around. And honestly, recording less doesn't mean disappearing. It means giving you time to finish off your ideas, letting episodes earn their existence, stopping when your thought is done, not when the clock says so. Now, some podcasts genuinely thrive weekly, others don't. And forcing yourself into that regular schedule just because others are doing it, even though it flies against everything you believe, everything you're capable of, and everything you desire, well, that's just dumb. And it makes you quietly resentful, which is not what any one of your listeners wants from your podcast. Now, here's a kinder way to decide your schedule on your terms. Instead of asking, how often should I publish? Try asking, how often do I actually have something to say? And that answer may well change, and that's allowed. You're not signing a blood oath here. The podcasting gods are not going to suddenly turn up with a contract signed in your blood saying,
"You signed the contract in your own blood, Eliza. You owe me weekly episodes. Do not disappoint me."
You're learning what this thing needs to be. And if you're worried that recording less will make people forget about you, here's the promise. They won't. People don't forget podcasts because they miss a week. They forget them because they're shit and nothing sticks. And the episodes people remember are almost never the rushed ones. I hope you found this helpful. And if you did, please do share it with another podcaster that you think might find it useful to hear or watch. Have you subscribed to the podcast yet? If not, smash that button, as the kids would say. I've been Neil Velio, the Podmaster. This is Podcasting Insights. And until the next episode, good luck with your continuing journey towards Podmastery.
Podcasting Insight. Podcasting Insight.